yesterday we had some great calls in the fun half, and one of them was was in regards to a long-running feud I've had with someone who it's not necessarily to go into this, but I just want to reiterate one more point, because the argument was made to me, why would you have a feud with someone who you ideologically are simpatico with, right? Because I have a bit of a feud with someone who ostensibly we have very similar, I think, policy positions. And it is because of the similarity in those policy positions that what he spews is what actually is more problematic to me. I don't share an ideology with Joy-Ann Reid. There are some things that we agree on, I would imagine. Just like there's actually, it turns out, some things I agree on with Bill Kristol. Like Donald Trump is bad. But the point is, let's say I was a nutritionist and there was another nutritionist who was offering a philosophy, who we both agreed it's really important to drink water and to drink a lot of water. We want to encourage, that's what our agenda is. We want to encourage people to drink a lot of water. And part of that agenda, we're going to hand out free bottles of water. But that nutritionist is handing out water that is slightly sweeter than mine because it has radiator coolant in it. Okay? They pour radiator coolant into it, which is much sweeter. The problem is it's also really bad for you. So we're handing out the same product. We have the same agenda, drink more water, except for that one is laced with what is effectively arsenic. And what that does is it begins to make my water somewhat suspect. So if you're out there and you're ideologically similar as I, and yet you're saying, like, don't pay attention to the Supreme Court. Don't pay attention to the federal judiciary. Don't pay attention to the funding levels of things like, I was talking last night to someone who works who works for the city in representing people in housing cases, and they've been decimated. You've heard Ronald Reagan calling about immigration law, public defenders. I mean, these are one of literally hundreds of things that are fundamentally altered. But the federal judiciary, on a circuit court level alone, the Supreme Court, these are things that are going to last for generations. And when you say these things are irrelevant, then it actually hurts our shared ideological project. More so than somebody coming out there and saying, I don't think there should be single-payer health insurance. Because that argument we can have. I can argue. I can present the value of single-payer versus the value of a crappy market-based system. But if ostensibly we're selling the same thing, except for yours is laced with arsenic, then it's a real problem for what I'm selling. That's why it's more important for me to deal with people who are theoretically ideological simpatico, but are giving a fundamental misunderstanding of how our government works. I mean, it's why John from San Antonio used to call all the time. He says, we're not talking enough about the taxes that are going to need to be raised for single payer, because if we don't, we're going to end up with a situation like they had in Vermont, where they had the opportunity to get single payer there, and they had not built the political infrastructure that you need to push it through. They hadn't sold the dynamic of taxes are going to go up, but at the same time, you're going to pay that much less in health insurance. And because they didn't do that work, it failed. And now there's no single payer in Vermont. And frankly, saying the Supreme Court or these courts don't mean anything. And you talk about the suffering of, people who are, so-called dreamers and, or what's going on in Puerto Rico. Yeah, it actually matters. It actually matters. It's very easy for some people to say, we can ride this out because maybe they're getting health insurance from the company they're working for, as opposed to having to get it in the individual market. Or maybe they're white and maybe they're a guy and there's no chance that they're going to end up suffering under any of these circumstances. But I think it's just, that's why it's more important to me. Also, just changing the mood a little bit. I got very heated, and I didn't mean to get so heated yesterday with the caller from Canada, because the last thing I want to do is to, in any way, suck Canadians into our muck. They are like the ballast of in this hemisphere, it seems to me, of just like, politeness and.
You sure you want to do that?
Right. And that would be a damn shame if we got them sucked into our like toxic stew that we got now in this country. Hi folks, Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos